Today I'm going to be talking about the latest Gojira album, Magma.
Don't lock the door on me. You kill me face down dead. Another part of you gone to waste. Please hear me out.
So, Magma by Gojira. Magma is Gojira's 6th studio album, following 2012's brilliant L'Enfant Sauvage, which I have a patch of on there because I love it that much. They've just come off a great string of albums, really. They did From Mars to Sirius, great album. The Way of All Flesh, also a great album, and L'Enfant Sauvage, which I really enjoyed as well, great record. So they followed these albums up with Magma, which came out in June 2016, and was my introduction to Gojira because I wasn't familiar with their music really. And I'm glad I heard Magma when I did, because it really introduced me to a great band that I now love. So they come out in June 2016. I heard it later. I got into it sort of October, September time 2016, and I went through a phase then of just listening to it all the time, and then I went back and listened to all their other albums. And Gojira for me are one of the most interesting bands in metal right now. The album's called Magma. I believe it was called Magma because without the G it says Mama, and the G represents Gojira. And also I think Mario described it as it was like that sort of emotion boiling up inside of you, like Magma does in a volcano. So I like the title to this record because it sort of encompasses the entire album, what it means, what it symbolises. So, Magma. I've seen it called, sort of referred to as Gojira's Black Album, which I kind of get actually, because maybe it's more accessible than some of their other albums, and maybe a little bit more commercial in some tracks, but I don't see this as a bad thing because I love this album. So it's definitely Gojira's most personal record, because Joe and Mario, the lead singer and guitar player and drummer of the band, they are brothers, and in the writing process to this album they lost their mother. So this album is very personal. There's a lot of personal songs on this record, and it sort of documents that struggle, that difficult time for a family, and this album has so much substance behind it, and I really enjoy this album. So we're going to the first track on the album called The Shooting Star, which is very different from what we've heard from Gojira before. Like they've been mostly sort of death metal. However, they've done other things as well. On L'Enfant Sauvage there was a song, for example, called Born in Winter, which showed a much more softer side of the band. And I feel like that's explored more on this album. Maybe not in the same form. However, that more softer, more experimental side of Gojira is definitely pushed and explored here. So we're going to the first song called The Shooting Star. Now instead of a heavy intro, we get a very groovy, very melodic, psychedelic sort of intro track. It's over 5 minutes long, and it goes through sort of a very groovy, melodic riff into very psychedelic verses with beautifully performed lyrics covering the theme of loss and the pain that comes with it. Now this song grows on me every time I hear it. I love this track, but the more I hear it, the more I understand it, the more I realise how much of a great track this is. And it's a really great sort of haunting start to a great album. Following this sort of soft outro on The Shooting Star, we have the song called Silvera, which is one of the singles from the album. They did a video for it, which is brilliant. If you haven't seen that, it's on YouTube. And that just kicks straight in, and that's what I really liked about this track, because there's like a soft outro bit on The Shooting Star, and we go into Silvera, and it's just this punch in the face of metal, and I really enjoy it. It's got sort of quite uplifting lyrics, because The Shooting Star is quite dark, and it goes into a really quite a uplifting track in the verses, with the heavy verses. It's got a melodic chorus with like a cool tapping part, and it has a weird like offbeat bit towards the end, which sort of showcases Mario's ability as a drummer, which is also shown in the following track, The Cell. Now The Cell, the drum track to this is absolutely insane. I've been tapping it on tables since I heard this album nearly 2 years ago, and well, a year and a half ago, and still it's just one of them tracks that I just can't get my head around. It's just an insane drum track, great intro, and then it goes into a really cool sort of heavy but groovy sort of verse, and it's just a cool song. Just about 3 minutes, one of the short songs on the album, and just a really cool sort of heavy track. Then we go into another single from the album. The first song I think I heard from Gojira, one of the most obvious as well, called Stranded. Now, this is where I kind of see the more commercial element to it, which I don't see as a negative thing, because this song is killer. It starts off with a riff that it's like a riff I've never heard before in metal, and it's got like a guitar sound that I've never heard done before in a metal band, a very weird, unique tone, and then it goes into these heavy verses. And it's just got it's got a great chorus, it's got a huge sound to it, and it's got like a softer bridge before going back into that killer chorus, and it's just a really, really great song, easy to get stuck in your head, and I really like Stranded, even though it covers the theme of like the pain that you go through in a situation like that. It's still just such a catchy song somehow. Then we get to Yellowstone. Yellowstone is like a minute, just over a minute instrumental piece that quite like nicely paces the album. Gojira have done pieces like this before, like I think it was called The Wild Healer or something on L'Enfant Sauvage. It's been a while since I heard that record actually, I'll go back and listen to it. But like that, it was like just over a minute little instrumental piece, and this piece is nice because it helps to pace the album quite well. And then it goes into Magma, the title track of the album, and now the way that transitions is brilliant from Yellowstone into the song Magma, because it's like Yellowstone's got a little bass orientated track, and then it goes into this psychedelic, strange but really cool song called Magma. Now Magma is where we really see Gojira pushing themselves and trying new things and not settling for the same thing every time, which is a thing I complimented in my review of Machine Head 2000s. I love it when bands push themselves, they change things up a bit. You know, even if it doesn't work, I respect bands for trying something new, but it really does work on this album. This album is fantastic. Magma is quite a psychedelic song. It's got a very strange sort of wild riff at the start, quite slow, and so again it's just got that psychedelic vibe to it, and it goes into a really cool grooving riff towards the end. There's so much melody in that riff, and it's a really great song on the album, about 6 minutes long, and it just fits perfectly where it is. Then we go into a song called Pray, which I really like as a heavier song on the album. It's got a really cool like complex intro before it just goes into some cool like heavy groovy sections, and Pray is just a great song. Same with Only Pain. Only Pain's a little bit more simple than Pray. However, the guitar tone from Stranded comes back, and one of the more straightforward songs on the album, but just so killer. I think they opened with it on their last tour, and the chorus is killer. The riff at the end is just awesome. I always turn my earphones up or whatever I'm listening to it through my speakers, because that riff at the end is so heavy. And with 2 songs to go, that really heavy as fuck last riff is the last piece of, well, one of the last pieces of heavy music we hear on this album, because then we go into Lowlands, which gets a little heavier towards the end. However, the Lowlands is very melodic, and Lowlands is a really great song. It's again another example of Gojira pushing themselves, and this clearly speaks about the theme of losing their mother, and it's clearly very personal to Joe and Mario, and it's just a great song. It's quite slow and it's quite melancholic and quite quiet, and the video, if you haven't seen the video, some of the photography or videography in that video is absolutely beautiful. The shots is incredible, and it goes so well with a track that's so arty. That it goes through all these quiet sections before it goes into a more melodic, sort of heavy section towards the end. But Lowlands really well describes the sort of the pain that the brothers went through, and it documents it in such a tasteful and beautifully done fashion. And it truly is a great track. If you haven't heard the album, this track kind of doesn't sum it up. It sums it up lyrically, but it's just a beautiful part of the album, and it's a good way to sort of end it before we go into the final track on the album called Liberation, which I'm pretty sure was an improvised guitar piece, just a quiet outro to the album, probably done as a tribute, and it does work quite nicely. It's a really nice and classical piece just to end the album on. But yeah, so Magma by Gojira. This album is truly stunning, for me anyway. I know a couple of people disagree because it was more commercial and it wasn't as heavy, and God forbid bands not do something that's heavy all the time. But this track has some heavy as fuck moments on it, like Silvera and The Cell and the bits in Only Pain. But then there's some beautifully done sort of softer songs on here, like Lowlands and Magma and The Shooting Star. And this is a really, really great album. Yeah, I agree on the fact it's slightly more accessible to maybe The Way of All Flesh, for example. However, this is still a pretty deep and hefty album to dive into. It's slightly shorter than their other albums, I think. But there's no filler on this album. It's all just great stuff. And I just feel like this is another album you need to hear from start to finish to appreciate. I spoke about this when I did Catharsis a couple of weeks ago. Like, you may hear odd songs like Stranded by themselves, maybe The Cell or Silvera, but to really understand and get sort of the full experience of an album this well crafted and this brilliant, like this brilliantly executed album, you need to hear it from start to finish, in full, really loud, like maybe in the dark, because it's just a fantastic album and it's just beautifully executed. Everything about this album is really, really well done. The sound is amazing, the production is so good, and I feel like this really complements some of the fantastic playing on this record. So it is a bit of a step away from all the death metal stuff that they've done in the past, but it's so well executed that I can't help but love it. It's one of my favourite Gojira albums, simply because everything about it just flows beautifully. It's so well crafted, it works so well as an album. So I'm going to give Magma 5 out of 5, purely because it's one of the finest metal albums I've heard in a long time, and I'm really excited to see where Gojira go next with it, because they tend to mix it up. Even on the heavier stuff, they seem to mix it up a lot on each album. So I'm curious to see what, especially with an album like this, which is their most sort of, I'd say their most ambitious to date. I'm curious to see where they go next, because I heard they already started writing, so they could carry on with this more melodic sort of experimental side, or they could go back to brutal, or they can just do anything. They can go anywhere at this point, I think. And they seem like a band that can do most things. They can do like heavier progressive things, and they can do 4-minute cool just songs, and they can do the softer songs, they can do the heavier songs, and they can really go anywhere at this point. And I'm really interested to see how they follow up Magma, because Magma is a fantastic album, and I really enjoy it. So if you haven't heard Magma, it came out in 2016, go and check it out, because it really is worth listening to. If you enjoy it, then go back and listen to some of their other records as well, because some of their other albums are great. So yeah, thank you for watching, and let me know if there's anything else you want me to do. See you in a bit.